10. Missing in Florida. The fresh corpse of Savannah Gold was discovered on the side of the road near Jacksonville. Police believe it was a coworker who murdered the woman and then left her there like a piece of roadkill. The suspect is Lee Rodarte, 28 years old. Savannah and Lee worked together at a restaurant called the Bonefish Grill. He was the manager and had been having an off-and-on relationship with the deceased. When deputies checked the surveillance footage from the restaurant, they saw Savannah getting into Lee's car on a Wednesday afternoon. They could clearly see a struggle happening inside the vehicle. Lee then got out and used something to slash Savannah's tires. He drove away with Savannah still in his vehicle. That was the last time she was ever seen alive. She was reported missing later that evening when she didn't show up to work. 30 minutes before her shift, her father received a text from someone pretending to be his daughter. The text claimed that Savannah had run away with a guy and wasn't coming back. He was immediately suspicious because the text didn't sound like her. It was even filled with misspelled words. It was clear that somebody else had used her phone. It didn't take much work for the cops to figure out the texter was Lee Rodarte trying to get suspicion off himself. But the video surveillance showed what really happened, and Lee finally broke down and showed deputies where he had dumped her body. 9. Davenport Bat Attack. In Davenport, a man killed 3 of his coworkers using a baseball bat and a knife. His name is Sean Paul Runyon, and he went on a crazed murder spree inside the rental house where he was living with a group of company employees. According to the Polk County Sheriff's Office, Sean was temporarily working in Florida as a contract electrician. On Friday, while on the job site, he became involved in a physical altercation with one of his coworkers. He had an issue with a supervisor. He punched the supervisor in the face, and then he ran away. What should have been the end of a bad situation escalated into the worst situation imaginable. Sean ran away for the time being, but he wouldn't stay gone for long. He first drove to the Tampa International Airport, parked his work vehicle, and rented a car. Then he bought a baseball bat and returned to the rental home on Saturday morning. There were 7 people staying there when the attack began. He went into the bedroom of the coworker whom he had originally punched on Friday and beat him until he saw brain matter oozing out of his skull. He then went into another bedroom and beat a second coworker to death. Next, he walked into a third bedroom and stabbed the guy in there until he was bleeding out. He chased a 4th worker out of the house, but was only able to hit him once before he got away. Police then chased Sean for 2 hours before finally catching him at a local hospital, where he had tried to give them the slip. 8. The mass murdering stalker. Richard Wade Farley worked for ESL Incorporated in California. In 1984, Richard started stalking his coworker Laura Black. She had to obtain a restraining order against him in February of 1988 because the stalking got so bad. But the restraining order didn't do much because 2 weeks later, Richard showed up to work and shot and killed 7 people. One of them was Laura Black. A court ultimately convicted him of 7 counts of first-degree murder, and he is still sitting on death row waiting to be executed. This was a clear case of workplace infatuation gone terribly wrong. Richard was 35 years old when he met Laura, 13 years younger than him. Richard said that from the moment he met Laura, he was smitten. He fell in love, he started giving her gifts, he started writing her letters, and he even brought homemade baked goods to work. He asked her out repeatedly, but she always said no. She tried her best to ignore him, but Richard just wouldn't give up. His crush turned into obsession. Richard would show up to her aerobics class. He started hanging out outside her home. He would rifle through her desk early in the morning, and things were getting really out of hand. It was the restraining order that finally pushed him from love to hate and darkened his mind beyond repair. He brought a shotgun to work and blasted everyone he could on his way to getting revenge. 7. The Lululemon Murder. In March of 2011, at a Lululemon Athletica store in the Bethesda suburb of Maryland, a woman turned up to work with only one thought in her mind: murder. Brittany Norwood was the store manager, and so it was easy for her to lure Jana Troxell Murray to her death after the store closed. Brittany claimed that she left her wallet behind, and so Zana went back to help her look for it. That was when the attack happened. Brittany went completely berserk. When police found Jana's body, a coroner reported that she'd suffered 331 injuries. Brittany beat her and stabbed her until she was so tired that she had to stop. When the police questioned Brittany about what happened, she lied and said intruders were responsible. Her story was that a pair of intruders broke into the store, sexually assaulted them, and then killed Jana. But that's not what happened. The defense was able to make a clear case that Brittany had planned the whole thing. She hated her coworker and was ready to do whatever she had to do for the girl to stop breathing. Brittany was sentenced to life imprisonment in 2012 with no possibility of parole. She's still behind bars to this very day. What kind of drama do you think could have been going on at this Lululemon store for the manager to beat her colleague to death? Let us know any theories you might have in the comments, and while you're at it, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. 6. Trouble at the hospital. Two co-workers walked into a Philadelphia hospital where they worked, and only one walked out. Stacey Hayes attacked and killed Honore James at Thomas Jefferson University Hospital in downtown. Both men were nursing assistants. They were on the 9th floor, and it was just after midnight. Stacey looked completely normally dressed in his nurse scrubs. But what nobody realized at the time was that he had body armor underneath and came to work that day equipped with a rifle and a handgun. He shot the nursing assistant to death, then fled in his truck at about 1:30 in the morning. The police caught up to the killer in Philadelphia's Parkside neighborhood. He was completely covered in armor. He had all his weapons out, and he immediately opened fire on the officers. Two officers were wounded, with one getting shot in the elbow and the other taking a bullet to the nose. Police fired back and wounded Stacey with bullets to the upper body and throat. The investigation that followed was a little puzzling. Police were never able to discover any kind of reasonable motive for the attack. There was no tension between the two nursing assistants, nobody noticed any hostility, and the attack struck their co-workers as completely random. It looks like Stacey was walking around with a secret grudge until it caused him to explode. 5. Stabbed in Phoenix. A man in Phoenix was having such a difficult time with one of his co-workers that he came into work one day and stabbed him to death. According to what Socorro A. Jurado told the police, his colleague at a construction business in Peoria was bullying him relentlessly. The victim would taunt Socorro and overall make him feel bad about himself. They had been working together for quite some time, but that didn't really matter. The more they worked together, the more Socorro became convinced that all the other guys were out to get him. He also claimed that his colleagues began to follow his wife around as an obvious threat against both their lives. The final straw came the day before the killing. The victim laughed right in Socorro's face, so cruelly that he just couldn't take it anymore. He went home that night and plotted revenge. The next day, he arrived at work and waited for the victim to get close enough to his work table that he could reach out to stab him. He slashed him repeatedly in the neck, then grabbed him by the hair and sliced his throat open. Then, Socorro left work and turned himself into the authorities. The police found no evidence of mental problems. He wasn't unstable or even crazy. This was simply a case of a man pushed too far by the cruelness of his colleagues. And he snapped. 4. Beheaded at Work. An Oklahoma man was charged with first-degree murder after cutting the head off his coworker. Alton Nolan worked on the production line at a food processing plant in the city of Moore. He had been suspended from his job after one of his coworkers told the supervisors he was making rude comments about white people. Alton Nolan is African American. The employee who complained about Alton's allegedly racist comments is Tracy Johnson. Alton was so angry that Tracy tried to get him fired that he showed up for work when he wasn't supposed to and stabbed her in the face. He literally stabbed her in the face, then tried to cut her neck. Luckily, Tracy survived the incident and was later released from the hospital. The real victim was Colleen Hufford, whose head Alton removed from her torso. The authorities don't even know why he cut her head off, as she seemed to not be connected to the dispute in any fashion. He may have cut even more people's heads off if it hadn't been for another employee at the plant, Mark Vaughn. Mark just so happened to be chief operating officer and a reserve sheriff. He heard the chaos and came running with a rifle and shot Alton Nolan 3 times. Alton recovered in the hospital, but that may have just delayed the inevitable. He's now looking at a death sentence for murder. 3. Fake pregnancy. In Toronto, Canada, a man stabbed his coworker a few dozen times after she faked a pregnancy. This is a workplace drama like you've never seen before. Virgil Jack started sleeping with a boyfriend of her colleague. They were having an affair, and Virgil fell in love. But Nicholas Johnson, the 25-year-old man she was seeing, did not feel quite the same way. Nobody is exactly clear on what she was thinking, but it appears she plotted to ensnare this guy by pretending to be carrying his child. Virgil went so far as to ask a pregnant friend for a urine sample so that she could get a positive pregnancy test. Her friend said no, but she managed to get herself a positive test anyway. On August 19, 2017, Virgil's corpse was found in a stream in a wooded area of one of the worst parts of Toronto. She had been dumped. A forensic pathologist testified in court that he discovered 156 injuries on her body, 126 of which were stab wounds. 30 were lacerations. This woman was sliced to ribbons. The day before, Nicholas Johnson told his girlfriend he was going to visit his mother, but he really went to meet up with Virgil, as confirmed through text messages and tire tracks, to settle the matter about the pregnancy. Nicholas was planning to terminate with extreme prejudice. The problem was that Nicholas felt he had been pushed into a corner. He worked in the same place as his girlfriend and his mistress, and now he thought his mistress was going to have his baby. The only way out in his mind was to get Virgil out of the picture altogether. 2. Milwaukee Burger King shooting. An employee at Burger King has been accused of shooting their teenage coworker to death. His name is Derek D. Ellis, 34. His victim was Nisha Harris Brazel, a 16-year-old girl. It all happened when a robbery suspect walked into the Burger King and tried to stick up the place. Derek pulled out his gun and shot at the robber, accidentally hitting Nisha in the process. The whole incident was bizarre. The robber was a man named Antoine Edwards, with his accomplice being his teenage daughter. The daughter of the failed robber was best friends with a girl shot by Derek. The teenagers had organized the robbery together. Antoine Edwards, being the good father, came to their aid with some weaponry. It was all over what little bit of cash was in the drawer that night. The largest mistake was not letting Derek in on the scam. When he saw Antoine leaning through the drive-through window and waving a gun around, he pulled his own gun out and tried to shoot it, but he missed and hit his coworker instead. Not all of this has been 100% verified just yet. There are still court proceedings unwinding, and it could turn out that Nisha never actually had anything to do with the robbery. But these are the alleged facts as they stand right now. Derek is facing a homicide by negligence charge that could earn him 10 years in jail. 1. Chicago Standoff. In Chicago, the angry ex-employee of an auto parts company got into a gun battle with police. It happened after he showed back up to work with a semi-automatic handgun and went on a rampage. Salvador Tapia had been fired from Windy City Core Supply 6 months earlier, and he never got over it. He thought about it, and eventually worked himself into a murderous frenzy. He walked through the maze of engine blocks and giant drums with his handgun, shooting everybody he could find. When the police showed up, he fired at them from the windows, trying to keep them outside. By the time the assault team finally ended the chaos by storming the building and shooting Salvador to death, 7 people in total had died. 4 were pronounced dead at the scene, while 3 others died at the hospital. What's the worst situation you've ever gotten into with a coworker? Let us know about it in the comments, and thanks for watching. Remember to hit subscribe and check out all the other great videos from the channel. See you soon. Bye.